What's the matter with you, huh? Subscribe already.
So I'm here with my girlfriend. Say hello to the people, Danny.
Hi, people.
Do not let this cutesy voice fool you. This little girl is a terror. We got some things to talk about today. She has no idea what it is, so what you're about to hear is her genuine reaction.
Oh, there's gonna be another Joker movie?
And Lady Gaga is playing Harley Quinn.
I watch a lot of movies with Lady Gaga in them. She was in American Horror Story, Sin City. Her persona, when she first started doing music, was like the weird girl in a very like dramatic, over-the-top kind of way. And I feel like that's not necessarily a bad thing for Harley. What's their age difference?
Lady Gaga is 37 and Joaquin Phoenix is 48.
I guess that's fine. Personally, if I was writing a more real world version of Joker, she would be younger, because that's like a core aspect of their relationship. Like if you're translating it from the comics to the real world, is how fully and utterly manipulated she becomes. He totally takes over her life. Then again, in the original Joker, he was not in control himself. Like his mental illnesses had taken over. Maybe because the character is so different, it won't make as much of a difference.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to gauge exactly what take they're gonna have on this, because the Joker character in this version, this universe, is already such a different take on the Joker than what we get, at least in terms of like the most popular iteration. So, I mean, they already set up the basic premise because he's already locked up in the loony bin. So the basic premise of her being a psychiatrist that ends up falling to his manipulation is the foundation's already there. But beyond that, you know, it's kind of hard to gauge.
The part that just tripped me up as we were talking about it is Joaquin Phoenix's Joker capable of manipulation? Because he couldn't even talk to, I forgot her name, I'm sorry. He couldn't even talk to her in the first movie. Everything that happened with them was in his head. So are they going to turn him into someone that's more manipulative? Because I feel like that doesn't track well. Or are they going to do something stupid?
I'm not going to lie, the fact that it's Joker 2, I'm leaning more towards stupid. To be fair, as Arthur Fleck, do I think he could have wrapped Harley Quinn around his finger? No, not at all. But by the time he goes on the talk show, he's like fully into the persona and playing up every aspect. And even the way he was talking to that psychiatrist at the end of the movie when he walked away with the bloody footsteps, that guy I could see. And then maybe he's been in there for a few more years and he's even more into the Joker persona.
I mean, I guess, but I don't see the transition as clearly as you do. Maybe because part of what makes the Joker like character, or even like real people who were like manipulative or narcissistic, like cult leaders and stuff, part of what allows them to do whatever they want to do is how other people perceive them. And I feel like part of the problem with the Joker in the first movie is that even when he was coming into his own, other people did not look at him positively. Or at least my interpretation of it felt like they weren't necessarily relating to him, they were using his platform to push their own desires, if that makes sense. Like they wanted to rampage in the streets already, they were just using his outbursts as a scapegoat, basically, as a reason to do it. That was my interpretation though, so maybe I just have a different interpretation. If you look at like a cult leader, for example, they're usually enigmatic and charismatic. So I just find it like hard, the idea of somebody who's like in their late 30s, successful, being easily manipulated by someone in their late 40s who until a couple of years ago was a literal joke.
I think you're right, because like if she was some like fresh out of college, just started, fresh in the world, you know, much more easily manipulable, and even if he was a loser who just walked into himself, that's really common to see younger girls and younger women fall for and get wrapped up in guys who are complete sons of bitches in the actual world, but she don't know no better. So that would make the whole aspect of sympathy and woe is me and all that even more powerful.
Right. It's not like it's impossible to be in your late 30s and get tricked. Like, I'm not saying that, but it's just a hard sell in a movie. You know what I mean? Like, and especially in her position, like, one of the very difficult things to understand about Harley Quinn in general is that she was working as a psychiatrist and she got so easily tricked by him. But translating that into something more realistic makes that feel like a bigger sticking point. Like, it's one thing when it's in a comic because, you know, there's also heat rays and Batmobiles in comics.
Right.
So, like,
there's a man who is walking winter wonderland.
Exactly. The Joker's ability to manipulate and his charisma being that intense is not really all that surprising. But the problem with making it more realistic is that it's just a harder sell. Personally, being someone in my early 30s and thinking about how awful some relationships are, I just can't imagine meeting someone in a psych ward and being like, yeah.
That's because you're not dealing with that Arthur Fleck realness. I mean, come on. This guy blew a guy's head off on national TV. Don't you think that's a little worthy of following?
No. I don't. No. That's like those women that like obsess over serial killers. Y'all are wild. Like, it would not be me. They be like mailing them in prison and shit. They be sending them money for their constant cards.
Listen. When you find your king, even if your king got bloody footsteps and got a body count of like 20 people, that's your king.
I value my life a little bit.
Stop doing that. No, that's the first wrong way to be a woman. You're not supposed to be doing that. No.
Listen. We've known each other since we were like 14. If you ever just randomly got violent with me, I'll just stop talking to you. Not like violent near me. Like, if there's a reason, I get it. But I'm talking about like toward me. It could just be the threat of violence. Like, if you threaten me, no. Why would I continue to talk to you? Would it be difficult? Would I be sad? Sure. But you know what's worse than heartbreak? Broken bones.
What's worse than getting your heart broken? Literally getting your heart broken because this nigga stabbed you in the chest.
I don't got time for that. No.
I'm not even asking anymore.
What do you think would be the worst take they could have for Harley Quinn?
If they do like a super leftist take and they want to make her like progressive and feminist and stuff, that would be the worst. Because honestly, Harley Quinn's story is supposed to be traumatic in the beginning. She literally gives her life to the Joker. Like, that is what makes her Harley Quinn, is that she is totally and completely obsessed, dependent on, and it's not codependence because the Joker does not need her. She is dependent on him and obsessed with him and devotes her life to him. And if it's anything but that, it's not Harley.
Y'all, I want y'all to understand, Danny is a Harley Quinn fan.
Oh, I'm a fanatic.
If anyone is listening to this and is like, that's not true, blah, 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 we have gone to whole ass nerd conventions on at least 3 occasions where she was either cosplaying Harley Quinn or had Harley Quinn style clothes on.
To explain it too, Harley Quinn's story is actually a feminist story. Even the story of her creation is pretty feminist because she was meant to be a one-off character on a Batman animated series, and she became a fan favorite and infiltrated the comics and now has her own comics. So I mean, like, her as a character is already feminist. She doesn't need an extra feminist storyline. She exists as a feminist. Like, it just exists already. And I feel like she's one of the most recognizable characters from Batman. There's a lot of really good villains in Batman, but I mean, besides the Joker, Harley is pretty far up there.
Both in her real life rise to prominence and in the roles she has played in the comic books, one might say you can see things that she has done in the story that a lot of women in particular could relate to.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this before. One of the reasons that I love Harley Quinn is because I was in a really bad relationship and it consumed my life for 5 years. And it took a lot to leave that situation, and then it took a lot to, like, not necessarily the relationship itself, but some other aspects of it. It took a lot to, like, heal from that. But those aspects of what was difficult and then surviving it and coming out on the other side as the better version of yourself or a truer version of yourself is totally Harley's story. That's why it's so empowering. But you have to actually get there. You have to survive something to be a survivor. You know what I mean? Like, if you can't start off as the empowered person and then be on the other side. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the story that she's telling.
Okay, so you as a Harley Quinn fan, you love Harley Quinn as that, and you do not want them to make her, say in an attempt to make her some type of quote-unquote feminist icon, change that aspect of her character.
I don't understand this necessity of, it's kind of like when people complain about the Disney princesses and you're like, I get the complaints, it's not that I don't get it, but also, being kind is a virtue. So, you know, you could still be a feminist and be kind. I'm just saying, right? We can do that, can't we not?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's the same with this story. Like, being a feminist doesn't mean erasing stories of our own pain. You know what I mean? It just means that doesn't have to be all of our stories, which is fine. But Harley Quinn's story is painful, period.
I often think of characters like her and She-Hulk as characters who, in their real life rise in prominence and in their story roles, are inherently very empowering to women. But because we're in clown world right now, no pun intended, we have to slap it with this heavy ass handed coat of, this is empowering for women, here you go, diversity, you're welcome. And then all they do is usually strip the characters who are already powerful and or empowering to make them a superficial, non-empowering nothingness.
Yeah, and one of the fears that I have with that, honestly, is obviously everything is like a pendulum, right? It swings so hard one direction than in the other. Is that in this desire to find more representation for like strong, capable, independent women, is that the women who are suffering will feel more isolated, because we're now saying like it's not feminist to be in these difficult situations, or like we don't support the stories of women in these situations, which I feel like is just backwards. Like, I'm not saying don't make empowered characters, don't make powerful women, like obviously do. And like we're talking about comic books, they're kind of everywhere. But like, don't lose the characters that have tattered backstories, because those are still real stories. Why do we need to ignore that happens? Why do we not want stories that can be relatable when we're in those situations, or when our friends or our sisters are in those situations? Like, we shouldn't. We should embrace those stories just as much as we embrace the stories about women being girl bosses and lawyering it up. Actually, we're not going to celebrate that story at all, but...
Thank y'all for watching and listening. Be sure to check out next time. She'll probably be back on the channel, because it's not like she's gonna stop talking and having opinions. So I'm gonna just keep bringing her ass up here, because that's what love means.
Is that? I didn't sign up for that part of it.
Yes, you did. We had a whole ass podcast for like 7 years. Don't try to act all brand new up here trying to be difficult.
My middle name is difficult. It's not. It's Marie, obviously, but...
Talk to y'all later, deuces. Why am I with this woman?
Bye, y'all.